Hey everybody. All right, so we're going to go through and do a review of the changes the 1939 made to draft today. This is going to be certainly less structured than my discussion about the Homefront cards, um, and probably a bit more ranty. But first, let's go ahead and go through the actual changes the 1939 made. First off, so there are a list of cards that 1939. I think this is fine, right? Is they've gone through and they've marked cards that were in the reserve list and said, "Hey, these are going to show up in draft." So some notable ones that then got like they seem like maybe they're using that to sort of test things that maybe will come back into the game. So I think like a good example was the like vanilla Spitfire was like available in draft and then got rotated back in, which was kind of weird. But there were a couple other cards that were sort of in the same idea. Um, so although they've kind of phrased it weird, I'll post the link here just in the chat if people want to read through it. So they phrased it a little strangely because they've got 4 sections in here. So there are cards that are removed from the draft pool, cards that have been marked as no longer removed from draft pool, added to the draft pool, and no longer available in draft. And I think that it's a little strange. So basically, as far as I can tell, there's the cards that they've marked as no longer removed from draft are cards that have now been rotated. So they were cards that were legal in standard, had been marked as in basically removed from draft. Those cards got rotated from standard to the reserve pool, and now they don't need to be marked as invalid for draft because, hey, because they're in the reserve pool now, by default, that means they are invalid for draft. And vice versa for stuff that's rotated in from the reserve pool. Now it doesn't need to be marked as, oh, this is a special draft only card because, hey, it's now in the active card box, so it's naturally going to be in the list. But the ones we want to focus on today are the ones that are either newly blocked from draft or have been have stayed in the reserve pool and now are available again. So, first off, I want to lead off with a couple that I'm going to do these a little out of order because I want to start with some of the ones that seem like they make sense, right? Things that are very, very, very constructed specific that shouldn't be in draft. So a good example is Persian Corridor. Persian Corridor is the Soviet 2 cost order that says give a friendly British or US unit destruction effect that triggers the destruction effects of all your Soviet units. So obviously in a draft format where first off, you are not going to be guaranteed that you have British or US as your friendly nation, either as your primary or your secondary, because this is a special, so I guess it could show up if you were Soviet secondary. This is so hyper specific. In addition to there just not being that many Soviet destruction cards, like this card is garbage, and so hyper targeted that I think it's hard to even build a constructed deck that makes this work, let alone make a draft deck that makes this work. And frequently you might be in a position where this, I assume there is no way in the draft format to filter for, hey, these cards should only show up if both you are running a Soviet and British deck or a Soviet and US deck or vice versa. So yeah, makes sense. It seems totally fine to say, hey, this is a card that is so hyper specific that let's get rid of it. No one is ever going to pick it ever in a draft format, and it just makes the draft pool that much shittier. Fine, right? This seems totally okay. I think Soviet is already one of the stronger nations in draft, so getting rid of one of the specials that can show up is going to make their other specials show up more frequently, which is great. Yeah, but in either case, this is something where it's like, this seems like, I don't think anyone's going to look at this and disagree with this change as far as like, hey, this is a this isn't just a bad draft card. This is a dead draft card, and that is not fun. Okay, next one that I think makes sense are some of the more specific, or some of the more specific elites that got removed. So, Way of Subjects is one. So, Way of Subjects is a 2-cost Japanese elite order that says all Japanese cards in your deck get bond in your HQ. It's +1 defense when you play this card. This card is trash in constructed. It just seems bad, period. But it's even worse in draft. And you get so few elites in draft that if this is your elite that you get offered, it's just, that sounds terrible. But this does raise the question of, okay, we're going to get into this now. 1939 needs to describe what their goal is when they make changes like this. Because this is the first card of a couple that we'll see. Oh boy. This is going to get spicy. So 1939 does not say why they're making the changes that they do. And like, if the idea here is, hey, we want to get rid of trash elites that you have the possibility of showing up in draft, okay, that's fine. That is, I would be totally okay with that reasoning. But then the question is, why the fuck is Tide Turn still around? There are so many other elites that are just as garbage as this one, right? Like, get rid of all of those if you're going to say we don't want bad elites in draft, okay? So, but again, we're getting rid of one of them, and no one's going to complain about that. But, okay. So, other things that they're getting rid of that seem fine, because they seem very, very deck-specific, is they're getting rid of the RM Bersiglieri, the Italian Navy 1-cost order that says draw a card from your deck that didn't start there, gain HQ defense equal to its cost. There's only a couple cards that can even work with this, and obviously the whole Bersiglieri package is the idea that you'd be running this in a constructed format. This 99% of the time is a dead card. Totally fine with this getting removed. This is the same as Persian Corridor being tossed, where it's like, hey, like the Bersiglieri cards in draft seem pretty good because they're pretty strong, and you kind of have the offset of like, hey, you don't want to play them that frequently because you'll bond yourself pretty hard, but like for the stats, they can swing pretty heavy on the board, right? But drafting Bersiglieri on the hopes that you maybe have Bersiglieri in your deck and one that died and you can pull it is, I don't know, the dream doesn't exist, and it makes sense why this is getting canned. Totally fine. So, all right. Well, the one last one that seems fine is U48. U48 got restricted, so this got pulled off of the restricted list. It became active in Homefront and has made its way onto the now it's restricted in draft list. And it's just a 3-cost German order. The enemy can't deploy units next turn. This is also awful in draft because it's like, I feel like draft frequently you end up on turns that are weird anyway. So like blocking your opponent from deploying units is something where it's like, okay, I guess maybe this disrupts them, or you play it on a turn where you flood the board and try and like kill them. I don't know. It's hyper specific, and you would almost rather have any other special order than this one. So again, something where it's like, hey, this makes sense. This is probably like a very constructed specific card. Sure, let's get rid of it. Let's toss it. Like Navy doesn't really matter in draft. So like even the weird edge case where, you know, the tribal stuff works. Okay, that totally fine with removing it. Again, I wish there was some description as to what the intention here was. And it's like, okay, is this for the intent of making the like German elite draft stock better? Sure. Is it done because I would 100% want to read more detailed notes about what the goals are of this. So the ones that I'll move on to the ones that I'm more upset about. So there's a couple ones that oh man, they're driving me up the wall. So the first one of the two for Poland. So Iron Division is now reserved in draft. Iron Division is one of the Polish cards that was like the reason you drafted Poland, in my opinion, because it added some card draw, and frequently you could use it to sort of both guard your base, and, guard your base, add some card draw. I feel like it was just a solid card. I feel like Poland got absolute diddly squat in this expansion, so like all the stuff that they got was kind of garbage, and I don't even think is good in a draft setting. So taking one of the like good Polish cards that is good in a draft setting and kicking it to the curb is like, why? I don't think Poland is that good to begin with, in a draft format, and then you're kicking them in the shins, with not just one of the cards that I think only has a place in draft, but is at least good there, but the other one is 7TP, which is another card that seems like, okay, two cost Polish tank that draws a card the first time a friendly unit survives combat each turn. Also seems like a totally fine draft card and pretty ass and constructed, and you're also getting rid of this. So the reason I'd love to see notes is that if the idea is, hey, we don't want like sort of free card draw to exist for minor nations in draft, like that is a completely reasonable argument where it's like, okay, you want it to be more driven by whatever the main nation is that you're drafting, so you don't want to like sort of cover up the gap. So like if you really want heavy card draw, you need to draft Britain or something like that. That would be fine. Except for the part where it's like the nation that seems the most brutal for this is Finland, which got nothing that draws cards rotated and is the most obnoxious one, where it's like, Infantry Regiment 36, really good in draft. 109, good in draft. Rima Susi is just draw for free all the time in draft. It's like, why were the Polish draw cards rotated when they're a weaker nation as an ally, and the Finnish cards weren't? Like, what is happening here? The only Finnish card that did get rotated, which I'm totally fine with, is Decoy Tactics, which right now just kind of seems like there's a bunch of bugs with to begin with. But then B, yeah, I can totally see how this is an annoying freaking card in draft setting, just because it's like, having a card that can potentially 3 or 4 for 1, fine. If you want to remove it, okay. I guess I can't complain. But what I can complain about, speaking of other Homeland cards that got rotated, is, okay. So there's actually a number, and I think this is, let's start with 27 Fusiliers. It's not a Finnish card. I apparently was inactive and got disconnected. Okay, I will be right back. I did not realize that looking through your collection means that you are inactive in the game. Okay, while this is relaunching, so 27 Fusiliers is the introduced in Homefront, the 2-cost 1-op 2/4 Bond Blitz or Bond Shock German infantry that when a German unit enters your hand, reduces cost by 1 to a minimum of 1. Okay, so I feel like Homefront has not been out for that long. The constructed meta, I feel like, is starting to get figured out, but I don't know if it's there yet, because obviously Bretta's like a big thing right now, so now there's decks trying to beat Bretta into the ground, and then there'll be decks trying to beat those decks but still beat Bretta. So like, I think give it another week and a half, and we'll probably, like, it'll really solidify. But constructed gets figured out a lot quicker than draft does. So to see cards that seem like they are fine getting rotated, that were literally just introduced, these are not cards that were rotated from an old set back into the game that maybe there's been some previous experience with. These are cards that were literally introduced in Homefront, and after a couple weeks we're saying these can't be in a draft format anymore. And these, like, there's a handful of these, and all of them seem like they're fine. They're fine in draft. I don't understand why it is that these things, like, are they too powerful? Are they too specific? Like, I don't get it, because reading through the cards that have been removed, it makes no sense to me what is happening here? So 27 Fusiliers is one of the ones that got rotated. And again, this is a card where it's like, has this seen constructed play? I think people are trying to work with it a little bit, but like seems like it's okay. I mean, you're gonna like, I guess the argument here is, oh, you don't want stuff that, like, maybe this is not great as an ally card and that makes it weird to draft and you don't want it to fill the draft slot there. And it's like, you can have cards that, like, at that point, sure, fine. If you get forced into a spot where you're a German ally and you're drafting a 2-cost 2/4 bond shock infantry that, you know, the effect will never go off because you don't have that many German units, and you bond yourself and then you have a 2/4 shock infantry with 1 op cost. It's like, yeah, that's a bad draft card, but it's not like completely unplayable garbage like some of the other stuff that got rotated. So it's like, I guess I don't understand what the intent is to figure out why we're removing cards that were literally just introduced that seem fine. So this is one where at least I could see how, okay, maybe you could argue yourself into a position where it's like, oh, this like doesn't feel good to show up in a draft and we want to remove it. But like, if that's the argument that you're making, then there's a lot of other cards that fall into that same bucket. And like, where do you draw the line then? And if this card is good in draft, it's like you save a couple deployment points at some point while playing it, which again seems fine. Like, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think this impacts Germany one way or the other. Like, as far as like what they have available to them in draft. Like, yeah, with this out of the pool, you'll see other cards more frequently. But this card seemed okay. Maybe a little like, if 2.5 is good, this is maybe like a 2.8 or something like that, where it's very slightly above average for an uncommon, just because it has some amount of added payoff to it and it's like decently statted. But like, I don't think there's anyone that would look at this and think this is overpowered in a draft setting. Okay, other Homefront cards that got rotated, they're actually like frustrating, is we have Lay Force. Lay Force got rotated. So Lay Force is a British infantry, 1-cost, 1-op, 2/2 blitz bond infantry that says your non-British cards cost +1, and it gets +1/+1 when the enemy targets or attacks it. So this again, like looking through it, it's like, okay, is the reason that this got rotated because it is something where 1939 says, okay, this card, you know, in a draft setting, this seems really uncomfortable because you've got the non-British card tax that's also put on here, in which case rotate Mustang, I guess, also, but that's not on the list. So like, I guess that's maybe not what the intent is. So like, and also if the intent, oh God, okay. If the design intent is we want to remove cards from the draft pool that feel bad to draft and play, if you can gain FL, it would be a straight. Yeah, I agree. That this does seem like it would actually like be good in a draft setting, but it's like, I don't think it'd be overpowered in a draft setting. I think it is definitely better in draft than it is in constructed, because I feel like in constructed it gets farmed by the other, like, you know, by Colm especially, just more efficient 1-drops that exist. But I don't know. I don't get it. I just don't get it. And I mean, if between this and 27 Fusilier, the reason those got rotated is like, oh, we don't want to put cards that are potentially in the game that feel uncomfortable to play because like the effects don't happen, or they're too expensive, or they're awkward if an ally nation, then dude, like, you literally just printed an expansion where the keyword was bond. All of the cards that are from that set that have bond on them are going to be awkward to play in draft. You gotta deal with it, right? Oh no, please. I would love some, like, if you have insight, it would be amazing. So Um, yeah, the other one that got rotated, and this one is the one that I mean is Hellcat, the one that was newly introduced. That again, I think this is a card that seems like it is a this seems like it's one of the cards that is like, hey, this seems like it's a potential draft staple card, and it's pretty much the only life that it has would be in a draft format. Because the slow nature of a draft setting means these Warcry effects can actually scale better. Um, Fair enough. So like if you're in the same sense of, hey, if you draft 27th Fusilier and it's in an awkward spot where you're playing German ally, and it bonds you and you don't have German units, so it's just kind of an awkward 2/4 shock infantry that bonds you. So it's like, hey, you're going to draft this and it might be awkward in some places. I feel like Hellcat is kind of the opposite, where it's like, this seems way worse in a constructed format, but like significantly better in a draft format, and you can have cards that are like draft superstars, that where that's where they live, is draft, right? And I I feel like the decks that I've had where I've played this, because I have done the like, okay, had Frontline played this on 3, double attacked on 4, awesome, like, that required them to not have an answer to it, and now I've got a 3/5 fighter and a +2/+2 on the top of my deck. Like, did it snowball and win like a game or two? Sure. Did it seem like something that was like so outstandingly powerful that it required being rotated like 2 weeks after the expansion dropped? Did it? Like, I don't think so. Um yeah. Okay. So the other one that did get rotated, and this one I can at least see an argument for, is 106. This one I imagine would have been on the rotation list whether or not it got emergency nerfed. This one I can at least see the argument that it's like, this is really, really uncomfortable for your opponent to play against, because I mean it is awkward to trade into in constructed and in draft, where you have even less ability to build your deck in such a way to sort of anticipate this kind of stuff. Like, yeah, I could see it. Yeah, too much value for a random in a format. Yeah, and I think it would be. I think this is one of the ones where it's like, this one I can at least see the argument for, because it's like, hey, this is a lot of value, especially since it is a common card. Like, I think that if this was a special, like, rotating this wouldn't be as important. But because, like, I mean, I've had Japan draft formats or Japan drafts where it's like, I get offered a 3-stack of 106, and it's like, yep, an instant pick, right? Like, it's just, it's good no matter what kind of deck you're building. So like, I can see the argument for like, hey, this is such a common pick, even with the increased cost, that like, okay, let's rotate it and let other stuff shine. This one, at least, I could see the argument for. That, yeah, that one seems okay. The other ones, which I kind of go back and forth on, where it's like, did we have enough information to really make a decision one way or the other? So Ace of Spades got rotated. So Ace of Spades is the 7-cost 1-op German infantry that's an 8/8 that is the deployment, deal 3 damage to an enemy. Then lasts on the board for a turn, becomes veteran. When it becomes veteran, it gains guard, and then at the end of the next, at the start of the next turn, everything gets bounced to hand. So this one is something where, I mean, first off, it's an elite, so you don't see it very frequently, right? I feel like Germany has better elites than this. And I guess the thing that I can picture is that it's like, okay, is this something that is frustrating to deal with in a draft format where, hey, maybe this is something where you kind of get the endless, like, you play this, your opponent can't clear it, it bounces everything to hand, you play it again, and it's just annoying to get the continual play cycle of like, you don't feel like you can do anything against this as it keeps sort of not necessarily wiping the board, but bouncing the board back to hand. Um, I can see the frustrating play cycle there. Um, I guess, I guess it's something where, at least, at least from my perspective, if you are playing even a draft deck, if you're in a draft deck where that is happening to you, and I mean this is, you know, whoever's playing Germany is not doing much themselves, right? Because they keep bouncing their own stuff to hand in addition to yours. So like when we talk slow burn, it's like you're averaging what, like a damage and a half per turn if they're just shooting your HQ with this. Um, if if you, even in a draft setting, have absolutely no way to deal 8 damage in a turn or silence over multiple draws, I don't know what to say. Maybe you are just destined to lose that game. I feel like there's more frustrating German elites that had never gotten rotated in comparison to this. Um, yeah. I mean that's the only reason I can see where it's like this is just like an awkward thing where, because I can see that happening, right? Where it's like, okay, depending on what you got offered, like you may legitimately not have been offered removal or silence or anything like that, and this keeps coming down, and you don't have enough blitz stuff to deal 8 in one turn, so it just super slowly burns you out of the game, and that would be like, I mean, you just resign, right? Which isn't a good play experience, but like that's the only thing that I can see where it's like, oh, this is something that is worth rotating this for. It's like, how many draft decks have we had that have even had a chance to play this in enough games to see stuff happen, to know that it is a bad playing experience against, to then remove it within a couple weeks of release? At least, again, going back to the 106 conversation, it's like, hey, this is a common. This is probably showing up in like darn near every Japan draft where it was offered, and you could very easily see the power spike of it. But I feel like elites take a lot longer to see that if you're rotating them due to awkward playing cycles and not because like, hey, this elite is just ass, like Way of Subjects. So let's see. So other stuff that got rotated that was from Homefront specifically. So rationing got rotated. This one kind of, I didn't expect that many cards to show up when I said ration. This one I could at least see the argument for, because it's like, rationing is the U.S. order. It's 2 costs. Choose one, remove bond from cards in your hand, or give your HQ 4 defense. So I at least see the argument where it's like, hey, like in a draft setting, you probably, like, this is a card that you're maybe building your deck around because you're expecting to have a bunch of bond stuff to then remove bond from. Sure. And like, obviously, if you're in a draft, like you may or may not be offered bond cards to actually remove stuff. In which case this is a fine heal. Like, I don't, like 2 cost 4 heal for your HQ seems okay. I guess, I mean, removing this definitely makes the US card pool better. But I mean, it seems fine to remove, and no one's going to complain that you removed it, but it's also something where it's like, I don't know what made this like okay, well, they're doing construction outside. Great. So I don't know what made this the like the US common that was worth pulling out and removing. Next one that got removed, let's see, I thought there was one more that was actually from this expansion, but it looks like I am wrong. So, okay, so other stuff that got either rotated back in or was already in the pool and is now being removed is 506 Airborne, which is just a vanilla 1 cost 2/2 US infantry. Fine. No one's going to complain. This doesn't live anywhere outside of draft. I know the number of times I got offered a 3 stack of these, and it's just like, well, I guess I don't have 1 drops, so sure, why not? I'll have some commonality to have, or I'll have some consistency of getting a 1-drop on the board. Yep, it's rotating, it's going away. Overwhelming Force is a 5-cost U.S. order that's a choose and discard a unit, give its attack and defense to friendly infantry or tank. Again, something where it's like this card is a basically, hey, you could potentially set yourself up for a 3-for-1. So this seems pretty awful, honestly. I don't know if I've ever taken this. So this getting rotated again is something where it's like, okay, so you're rotating rationing, you're rotating 506, you're rotating overwhelming force. These are all very, very mid to bad common cards for the US draft deck. So like US common drafts are probably going to be like more consistently good cards now. Let's see. So rationing, Hellforce, or Hellcat, Lay Force. Oh, Ulster Rifles also got rotated. So this is one that rotated back in with this expansion and is then now excluded from draft. So this is the 4-cost British Infantry, 1-op, 2/7 smokescreen. When your HQ is damaged, deal that amount to this unit instead. This is kind of a pseudo heal your HQ by 7. I can see why this... I mean, I don't think this card's very good anywhere. And in a draft setting, yeah, this is not... Doesn't really do a whole lot. And you're really disappointed if this is your elite. But again, this kind of goes back to the question of, okay, if the design intent here is, hey, we want to rotate elite cards that feel bad to show up in draft, there are other elite cards that you could also remove, right? That are also bad in draft. If you want to have the elite pool just be bangers that feel good to play, totally fine. But like picking out like a couple bad ones here and there and leaving the rest around seems kind of silly. 27 Fusilier, U48, Ace of Spades, 106. Last Rites also got rotated. This one is a little strange. So this is again an elite that got rotated back into the active card pool and is now excluded from draft. That just shovels 8 kamikaze cards into your deck for 3. So as opposed to Royal Ulster Rifles and the other elite, Way of Subjects, it's like I could at least see the argument for those being like, hey, these are just bad draft cards, right? I'm not as convinced that Last Rites is a bad draft card. I mean, I don't feel like you could ever just build a straight burn deck in draft just because you aren't going to be offered stuff consistently that lets you do that. But it's also something where this doesn't seem like it costs you much to play, and just slowly ping the enemy HQ for damage is fine. So, I mean, I don't think this is a great elite, but I think as opposed to the other two, it's at least playable. I wouldn't be jumping for joy if I saw this, but at least it's something where it's like, oh, okay, like, you know, it's something. And I guess trying to think about this from a gameplay perspective is if the intent is, hey, this feels bad to your opponent to have burn, and you don't want people to feel bad because they died from random burn cards, then why in the world is resistance still in? Like, if that was the design intent, is random damage feels bad, and then we just stuck an entire playset that does nothing but random damage. Not that resistance is good in draft either, but it has the same like negative feelings that this would potentially have. I think that was all of the things that got removed from the draft pool. So now we have stuff that got added to the draft pool. So so for US, so the commons that are sort of replacing, these are now technically reserved cards that are being added in. So 4th Marines is coming back. So it's the 3-cost, 4-op, 6/6 Blitz Infantry for US. So definitely seems like, you know, if you could picture like, hey, we took out Overwhelming Force from the draft pool, and now every time that would have shown up, 4th Marines gets offered instead. Yeah, you're going to take 4th Marines instead of Overwhelming Force. This card is very, very good. And it does seem like they're trying to push the US to be very focused on like big chunky draft boys. Because the other card that got rotate or is back in is the America at War, which is the other draft card. So this got rotated out of the expansion, but is now again going to show up in draft. So you now have the full everything ramp available to you because it's War Bonds and this and War Machine. I think those are the three I can think of. So like definitely seems like okay, you've got sort of rampy US, and the other one is 164th, which I mean I love this card. So I'm not going to complain about this being back in draft. And would I take 164th over 506 Airborne? Yeah, probably basically every time it was offered. So if every time 506 was offered, would you rather have a 1 cost 1 op 2/2 infantry or a 1 cost 0 op 1/1 blitzer that gives +1/+1? Hey there, Core. Yeah, you definitely would. I would every time a random 3 stack of 506 infantry showed up, if it was a 3 stack of 164th, 100% I'd be happier to have the 164th. So like net, it definitely seems like, hey, US improved. And hopefully, again, that was the intent for these cards that got cycled. So the other US card that is back is Firebomb, which is just, I mean, it's a fine removal. You're never going to complain about removal in draft. 4 cost, deal 5 to a unit. Any excess is sort of splashes around if you've got extra credits, which, again, if the idea is, hey, the US is more of a rampy nation, like you'll have those extra credits, and draft games just tend to go longer anyway, so the chances of this doing the splash damage is pretty high. Okay, so now going on to Britain. So Britain is getting back, let's see, it's 5th Parachute. So that's the 1 cost 0 op 1/1 mobilize. This one, so this feels weird to me. Because I was under the impression that and this is again where it'd be nice if 1939 had some statement about like what the goal is, right? Because I was under the impression that they were like, hey, we want to get Mobilize out of the game. Because it's kind of a weird mechanic. It's like, we don't like the way it plays, and they've been moving all the Mobilize stuff out. So to have them rotate 5th Parachute out and then be like, but you know where this is fine is draft? Like, let's just stick Mobilize back in the draft pool. It's like, okay, but like, why? If if the intent is let's get Mobilize out of the game, but I guess stick it in draft where no one gives a shit, then like I guess that's fine. But like, be a little more clear about like, okay, if you're getting Mobilize out, just get it out, right? I mean, I think this card is okay. I would so much rather have Lay Force than this as a 1-drop. But next one is Comet. Comet is 6 cost, 2 op, British tank, 6/6 heavy armor. When this unit deals damage to an HQ, draw a card. I think this one seems, I mean, I don't mind this in draft. I guess if you're looking at it from a, hey, what got rotated out and this got included, it's like, would you rather have this or Royal Ulster Rifles? I think you'd much rather have this. Could be to do for the British infantry density for the new cards. Yeah, but I guess I just don't. It's again something where it's like rotating Lay Force out to rotate 5th Parachute back in seems weird to me to take a card that it's like, this is new in this expansion. Ideally, I think you'd want people to be playing with the new expansion cards, right? Like, so to specifically remove one of those to rotate in a British infantry that has a mechanic that you've explicitly said that you don't want in the game anymore is strange. Like, there's got to have been other British infantry at the common tier that you could have rotated back in, right? Like, obviously, I don't... Like, there's so many reserve cards that I've never even played with that it's like... I don't know. Is there another common, like, that's in the pool that you could have thrown back in here? Like, I don't know. I'm sure that there is, but yeah, it's like, so I guess here's a good example of like, hey, if like pincer is another mechanic where it's like, hey, we wanted to rotate that out of the game, and now like literally nothing in the game uses pincer, right? So it's like for mobilize, like you've done the same thing. So it's like, imagine if we randomly got a pincer card back in the draft pool all of a sudden. It's like, okay, I guess, but like, why, if you're trying to get rid of it, get rid of it. So next one that got rotated back in. So Germany, we got Stug 4. Whoop, can't be looking for British infantry anymore. So this is a 3-cost 2-op German tank. 3/4 Fury deals demo damage to tanks. Card's fine. I feel like this is a card that you'll sometimes pick in draft, and it like, you know, sometimes the Fury effect triggers, but it's kind of expensive to like, you know, if you're doing the move it into the front line, double hit an HQ or something, like it's 6 cost to do that. So like, you know, are you going to complain about it? Probably not. I don't know if this really helps or hurts their draft pool, if I'm going to be honest. Looking at the stuff that got rotated, again, I feel like, you know, if you're looking at it from a commonality, so this is an uncommon card. So the card that got rotated to put this back in was 27th Fusilier. I would much rather have the chance to randomly... I would much rather have the chance to like actually try to play with Fusilier and see if it's any good in a draft setting. I think Stug is maybe a little bit better. It's certainly more reliable because you aren't relying on, you know, drawing German units. But you know, it's still weird to me that we're rotating stuff back in that's kind of been around for a while at the expense of stuff that just got introduced. Next one is one that I'm really surprised at is, wow, I can't spell, Zerstorer. So this is the 4-cost 0-op German fighter. 4/4 increase operation cost by 1 after each time it attacks. The reason I don't have any of these crafted is I literally started playing cards right after this, like all the decks playing this got rotated. So I saw whatever the like rotation set like championship was, where this was being run everywhere. And then Zerstorer, I was like, oh, that's a cool card. And then it was like immediately getting rotated. I was like, oh, well, I just, my first introduction to the game was like Zerstorer seemed to be everywhere. And then it's like, oh, just kidding. Now it's not here anymore. So it's coming back. So I'm kind of okay with this because I've never played with it and I'm interested to see what it feels like. I feel like in a draft setting, it's going to be good, right? But looking at the list, so it's like, would you rather have this or U48? You'd much rather have this. So it's like, cool, great. Like, definitely improved in strength, right? For the specials that you're being offered. So fine with that one. Next one we've got is King Tiger. So this one is 12 cost 4-op, 10/10, heavy armor 2, support line can't be the target of enemy orders of deployment effects. I mean, it's a big chunky boy. I don't know what you'd really say about King Tiger. Like, this is one where, again, it's like, okay, you've basically rotated Ace of Spades to put King Tiger back in. Is King Tiger a better card? Probably. Is it less frustrating to play against? I don't know if that's even the case, because like this effect seems like it would probably trigger more frequently than the Ace of Spades bounce everything to hand effect. So I feel like nixing the card that just got added to put this back in again is something where it's like, I wish we had more time to play around with it, because like I've never even seen that card in draft. I've never had the opportunity to draft it. I've never seen anyone play it against me. So it's like, I can't even evaluate if it's any good. It's like, I think it's fine. King Tiger's probably better. But it does seem weird. Also a favorite for some vets, which could be a factor. Oh, interesting. I didn't think about that. Yeah, I could see that being an argument. Is if, because I feel like draft is very underplayed. Because I feel like most people sort of correct me if I'm wrong, but my impression at least is that people seem to grind up to FM and then basically sort of dirtle for the rest of the month, and maybe draft once or twice, like get, try and do some runs to like expand their collection, but then otherwise doesn't really get played. So if the argument is, hey, let's put chunky cards back in that people like to see, at the hope that maybe it'll entice people to maybe play draft more, I could see the argument there. I guess I just don't have the history of like, what classifies as like, an old school card, right? That people would be happy to see come back. Next one is, so for the Japan stuff. So I feel like Germany seems like they made it out pretty good, honestly. So Japan's getting 51st Recon back. So 51st Recon is a 2-cost 0-op 2/2 Blitz Infantry. When the enemy HQ gains defense, this unit gains equal attack. I don't know if you can rely on this getting triggered at all. So it's like, okay, obviously, like, hey, would you rather have 106th in the game in a draft setting? 100% of the time, it's an infinitely better card than this. But if the goal is, okay, we want to get the 106th out and we want to make Japan a little weaker, then yeah, this is a 2-cost 0-op replacement infantry. Sure. Next one's Pete. Pete is a 2-cost 2-op 2/2 bomber. Can't be attacked by ground units while in the support line. This is another one that I've never played with. So I don't know what to expect. This seems like a decent repeatable effect. It's like, I would infinitely rather have this than Way of Subjects. So I really can't complain. Is this any better than Last Rites? I think I'd rather have Last Rites than this. This doesn't seem that good. But yeah, I would definitely rather... I mean, I'd almost rather have anything than Way of Subjects. Pete's hot garbage. I could see it not... I mean, yeah, I could see it. I just think if the intent is, hey, let's remove a bad elite and put a slightly better but still kind of bad elite in, it's like, again, this is where having the explanation as to what the intent is would be amazing. Because if the intent is like, if the intent is we want to get trash elites out of the game, taking a trash elite out to put a very slightly less trash elite back in is a choice. And was draft Japan that powerful? I don't think so. I could be wrong, but yeah. Okay, last one is 60th Cav, which is the Soviet 2/1 infantry that's a 2/4. Players can only give one order each turn. I don't know how often you really get blocked by the text in draft. I don't know how many combo turns in draft that you have where you've got like multiple orders that you need to go off, that this somehow like screws up your turn. So I feel like most of the time this is just a 2-cost 2/4 infantry. I guess what is the special that got rotated out so this could come back in? Persian Corridor, technically. Basically anything is better than Persian Corridor, so yeah, I could see this. I mean, if every time I got offered Persian Corridor, if I got offered this, I still probably wouldn't take it because I probably would have taken something else. But like, at least it's an option. I think that's it, because all the other stuff that came out was coming out as part of entering the reserve pool or leaving the reserve pool. So from my perspective, so again, so I feel like US got more powerful because you got rid of a bunch of pretty middling commons, and I mean, like Hellcat rotating is annoying just because I feel like draft is the only home it will ever have, but I could see why. But then at least they got like commons that seem pretty good coming back in, and then Firebomb is fine. Um, so like, I feel like US is probably in a good spot. Britain, I feel like, was already in a good spot. I'm just more annoyed that the stuff that got rotated for them was stuff that I was interested in testing out, mostly with. I feel like Lay Force is the only thing that really mattered there. Um, Germany, I just don't understand. Rotating Fusilier and Ace of Spades, I, I just don't. I don't get it. Because I guess if you were gonna rotate Fusilier, why would you rotate Fusilier and not the one that's the whatever the Panzergren that requires you to build your deck with evens in order to see like much play? Oh, what am I still at the reserve pool? This is the 4 cost guy. Oh no, that's the draw a unit back to hand. Oh my god. I am so bad at remembering the names of cards in this game. 43rd Infantry. Yeah, so like if you wanted to rotate like a kind of mid bond card, like I feel like you could toss that out. Um and Japan definitely got kicked in the shins, I feel like. Soviet basically didn't get changed. I feel like Persian Corridor is the one where it's like I really like if there was any card that I'm 100% fine with getting removed from a draft pool, it's that one. I also would have been totally fine if they just removed any of the ones that benefit from being played in a Brit US deck with Soviet. I feel like Exposed, because it just makes it 1 cost cheaper, is fine. But the whatever the infantry is, that's the gets stronger when you play. Yeah, the 199th rifle. There we go. Like if this got removed from the draft pool, totally okay with me. So yeah, Persian Corridor is a nothing burger of a card, and it is shooting yourself in the foot for drafting. So like that's the one where it's like absolutely no issue, even though it's a Homefront card. Them being like, we're moving this out of the card pool. It's like it shouldn't have even been there to begin with, if we're going to be honest. Like it's something that is so hyper specific. And let's be honest, there's not that many Soviet destruction effects to begin with. Like, I I don't know why that card got printed in the first place, let alone making it available in draft at all. But yeah, I think the one that I'm the most frustrated at, that it's like I really, really, really wish I knew what the idea behind it was the 2 Polish hits, where it's like Iron Division and 7TP were both cards that I basically only ever see them in draft. Poland, in my opinion, is one of the worst nations as a secondary. And it's just like, you took out 2 of their, yeah, 7TP is gone. So both 7TP and Iron Division are both out. And it's like, again, something where it's like, man, I don't know what I don't know what the bug is that they have for Poland, but it just doesn't. Yeah, thank you, Corey. You're recapping what I said. Because I feel like it's like the only other power Polish card in my mind now is the 3/6 was the Grenadier for 6 that like clears stuff out. Yeah, the first Grenadier Regiment. It's like that's fun. Wolves is fine. You probably don't ever want to use that for card draw, right? Like I guess you still have Zaza Division, but it's like if you're gonna rotate 7TP, why wouldn't you rotate Zaza Division? Like, so like this again goes back to the like I wish I knew what the intent was here, because the intent was we hate Poland and don't want them to ever draw cards easily. Like, fine. But like yeah. Okay. Well, let's see. Where did I have the whole because I did have a tier maker somewhere for this. Because I think what I had before Yeah, okay. So what I had before, and I'm not sure, I feel like I need to adjust this, but when I first, just after the Homefront cards review, um, so I think Britain definitely seemed like it was one of the stronger ones, just because the game has tended to lean towards more fighting on the board, so the high cost or high health British units tend to stick around a lot. I don't really think they've been heavily impacted by this. The only change to Finn was decoy tactics is removed, um, and this is where I got pretty ranty because it's like, hey, if you got to remove draw shit from Poland because there's too much draw, remove the draw engines from Finland. Like, yes, I agree. Decoy tactics is just a card that shouldn't have been printed. I mean, it seems broken right now, anyways. I've been trying to do some of the shenanigans with decoy tactics opposing units to make them discard when you attack it. So it definitely seems bugged. But it's like, if you were going to remove all this draw from Poland, it's like, remove Rimasusi, remove 36th Infantry Regiment, remove, like, there's, there are some issues. Yeah, that's, I will say, what makes me curious is it's like, what was the problem with it that made it not even get released if there's now these bugs coming out with it? Because it's like, was there more stuff that was broken with it? Because that would have been hilarious. I'm removing core's favorites. No, I'm treating Finland like 1939 treats Poland. That's so. So yeah, I think Britain is still, I in my opinion, I think Britain and Soviet were still probably one of the like best main nations. I don't think that really changes in this. Neither of them got touched all that hard. USA probably got a bit of a bump up. Japan got a bit of a bump down, and Germany is probably about the same. So if I had to rank them, I would think that it would be like probably Britain and Soviet about the same, USA very slightly below them, then Germany, then Japan. I already thought Japan already seemed pretty all or nothing in draft because it was like you either got a deck that actually fit like an aggro format and just went underneath any other thing in draft and like 7-0'd easily, or you got a deck that didn't really do much and then just kind of flubbed around and like went 3-3. As far as minor nations go, I think Italy and Finland are probably on the top together. Then there's a pretty significant gap, and then, oh man, I had Poland before France before just because I hate resistance in draft, but I think they honestly are flipped now. So I think France is better than Poland at this point. So I think there's a big gap between Italy and Finland, and then France, and then a small gap between France and Poland's probably sitting on the bottom now. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, not the thing I expected this morning because originally I was just going into the cards Discord to be like, hey, I wonder when World Championships is. Let me look at the announcements page. And then I see that they've done this, and I'm like, what? So yeah, definitely a bit not as structured as my like card reviews were. 20th and 21st. Thank you. I didn't even get to the part to answer the question that I had originally gone to the Discord for because I was just like, what are they doing to draft my poor format? So yeah, okay, well, I'm sure this will be interesting to hear about. Yeah, that makes sense. Looking forward to seeing what. Do you know for because I have not been around for very long. Do they post the deck lists ahead of time? Because I know they need to get submitted, but like, when does that become available for people to see? Because I know they've got the like channel in the Discord, where they like post. It's kind of awkward, honestly. It's like what, a link to like a Google sheet that's got just a bunch of card names on it. But I just wasn't sure when that shows up in comparison. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I'm very curious to see what the makeup is this time around. Um, so all right, cool. Well, that's enough. That's enough frustrated ranting. I feel like so. Um, gonna gonna see if there's. I think Henry was streaming. I can go ahead and try and do a raid. Try and be helpful to folks. Looks like there's Savage Hunt. Do I remember how to even do this? Oh boy. Um, Savage Hunt plays. Nope, that's not how you do it. Oh god. Slash, thank you. Shows how often I would ever have enough people to even be rating. All right, thanks for tuning in, guys.
I can't attack now, huh? Just kidding.